Yeah, man, we're jamming. We are jamming. It is week 3, Sunday, and this is the DFS Tailgate show on In Between Media. This is an exciting episode because I'm already haggard. It's only week 3. It's like we decorated for Christmas way earlier than last year. If you followed me last year, 2020 was I look like this around week 7, week 8, but I mean, we're already neck deep in football.
You don't look that bad, man. I mean,
yeah, you're a terrible liar. In any case, we have a lot of exciting things to cover on the DFS Tailgate. I'm Bo McBrayer, also known as Big Time. This is Cough DFS, Conor Coughlin, coming to you live from some bar in the Northern Plains.
the Gateway Bar and Lounge, man, Sioux Falls, South Dakota.
Don't you know?
You betcha.
Yeah, and so welcome in. What do we have on tap? On hand? You got a bevy in your hand, I'm sure. Are we munching on anything this morning?
So not eaten yet. I ate my weight in pulled chicken and barbecue meatballs yesterday. It's been a good few days, man, between Ryder Cup and then the epic fights last night, and now we got NFL today. My liver needs a break, but other than that, we'll get some food mixed in eventually. But no, so keeping with the thought of just doing a pretty easy, fun cocktail or shooter. I'm doing an oldie but a goodie today. We're doing Chuck Norris. And if you don't know what a Chuck Norris is, it's basically a shot of Dr. McGillicuddy's cherry. You drop it in a little vat of liquid ice, get that caffeine, get that good old flavor going, and you just shoot her down. And then these little bomb cups, you can pick these up at almost any grocery store. You can get a sleeve of them for like next to nothing. And that's really all you need. A couple of these bad boys will get you right on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, I mean, those remind me of Chico State Jello shots. That's usually the vessel we brought them in, and you get a couple hundred of those down on a Sunday, and you're partying. But yeah, it's for me. I'm not indulging in the alcohol quite yet this morning. I might just crack open an ice cold crispy boy before game time. Yeah, I'm a Miller Lite kind of guy. But I'll tolerate all the light beers because they're all pretty much the same to me. And I need to hydrate. I mean, I had a long night. It was National Daughter Day, and my daughter wanted to have a glow party, so we had a glow party. And of course, we set up the speakers, played a bunch of dance music, and it was fun. But it's a little rough this morning. But I did get a chance because one thing that's just as important as hydration is getting something in your stomach after a long night of overindulgence. And so I made chilaquiles, which is a traditional Mexican breakfast. And as you might know, Mexicans don't waste anything. They'll take the broken pieces or tortilla instead of throwing them away or throwing them on the floor for the dogs to eat. They'll just throw them in the fry oil, get them all crispy, and then toss them in hot sauce. And you might know of my hot sauce, Hot Box Gourmet.
What? You have a hot sauce?
Yeah, bigtimeflavor.co. You can find Hot Box Gourmet. That's what I toss these tortilla strips in. Fresh tortillas, just all bits and pieces that were all broken up. Threw them in the oil, fried them up crispy, tossed them in hot box. And then I threw last night's, you said pulled chicken. I did a slow cooked chicken. Threw in about 2 pounds of boneless, skinless thighs in the crock pot yesterday morning before work with more hot box salsa and it's taco sizzin from bigtimeflavor.co, and just cooked it all day while I was at work. When I came home, house smelled like tacos. And so I actually made sopes last night, which is like a taco, but it's a thicker masa shell that's in a cup. And so you fry that, and then you put your beans and your meat and your toppings on it, and you can hold it like a tostada kind of, but it's more dense. And so I had leftover chicken from taco night, and I threw that on there. Got a nice sunny side up egg, and then a little sour cream to mellow out some of the spice because Hot Box is not mild. But yeah, overall, this is it's known for being a hangover cure. And so I got my coffee, I got my chilaquiles, and we're gonna be ready for lock.
Dude, I am straight up just sitting over here drooling. That looks so good.
Yeah, it's just something I put together,
Yeah, just a little something I threw together.
It took me 10, 15 minutes.
I wish I lived closer to you. I'd be in your
just what I had
kitchen
laying around the house, just open the kitchen. What do I have?
every Sunday morning. I'd come over and let you feed me.
Yeah, I wouldn't kick you out either. You're a pretty decent guy, even though you got 2 different teams repping today.
Well, when you find yourself in a giant Chiefs bar, sometimes you got to adapt a little bit. So we'll cycle the hat in and out in between games.
That's a smart survival tactic, to be honest. You're kind of centered between Chiefs and Vikings country, so I don't blame you one bit.
Well, and then we got a bunch of Packers fans, we got a bunch of Broncos fans, and then we have a strong contingent of Cowboys fans, just like every other city does.
Right.
But yeah, it gets a little rough in here some days with the Broncos and the Chiefs. And
you would never think that people under the influence of alcohol would get rough about football.
No, very quiet, very chill.
Yeah.
It's
basically a book club.
Yeah, seriously, don't talk too loud.
So we got our libations, we got our food. Let's crack right into the football. We're going to start with underdog stories, brought to you by. I love it. Of course,
the man, the myth, the legend.
Yeah, we love the underdog stories. We got ourselves an underdog story on the screen with us, Seth Wilcock, the brains behind the In Between Media operation. He's also the good looks behind the operation because we damn well sure it ain't us. But Seth is going to bring us underdog stories brought to you by Underdog. Make sure you go and deposit at least $10. Get yourself a bonus for depositing on Underdog. Play with us. Play your player props, your best ball, even though that's already sewn up for the year. You can always check your best ball. I got hundreds of those things, and I'm sure I'm just hoping for a little bit of kickback at the end of the year. But we're doing the over unders. We're doing the player props today. And Seth, what do you have on tap for the underdog stories?
Yeah, guys. So like you, I'm feeling a little rusty this morning. Approaching the 1 o'clock hour. Still not feeling great after another Penn State game yesterday. But we are here. I do have some pick'em parlays for our listeners, for our live streamers today. And I want to start with one of my favorite players in the NFL. We haven't seen the boom game quite yet, but that's Chase Edmonds for the Arizona Cardinals. Right now, he's at a really great over under 78.5 rushing and receiving yards on Underdog. Guys, keep in mind here, they are playing the Jacksonville Jaguars. We've seen, we've seen, Bo, your laugh says it all, man. We've seen them give up a ton of yards to the past couple weeks. Last week, we saw the Broncos running backs go over 140 yards combined. Week 1, we saw the Houston Texans mishmash of a backfield go over 160 total yards. So right now it's 78.5 rushing and receiving yards for Chase Edmonds, Mr. Edmonds, I like to refer to him sometimes. And
that's official.
There we go. We've seen him go over 100 yards combined in week 1. Last week, he hit 75 against a tighter Minnesota Vikings defense. So I'm taking the over here on this one, boys.
Yeah, well, Connor, what do you think?
I think I got to try and find my unmute button. No, actually, I'm with Seth on that. I was just looking at a couple of the first 2 weeks. I mean, getting 80 plus combined should be no problem. So I mean, I think it's a low ask, and I mean, it's Jacksonville, so
yeah.
Yeah, I also love that line because what we've seen so far is a great mix between running and passing for Edmonds in this offense. And this is a team that really doesn't like to run the ball. It's an air raid offense. Cliff Kingsbury's not very creative. He's pretty vanilla. Everybody just stays in the same role. Absolutely. And barring injury, Chase Edmonds is going to have that solid role. And he's pretty much matchup proof with the volume he gets, especially through the air. So I see him getting maybe 45, 50 receiving yards by themselves, and he's always due for 5 to 10 carries. And against the Jags front that just can't stop anybody, I can see him easily going over 80 to 90 yards total and hitting this over pretty darn quickly, especially because I expect them to be ahead early, and they're going to lean on both running backs. We know James Connor's terrible at football, so Chase Edmonds is going to be the guy that actually makes plays.
Well, yeah, and strangely, I mean, to kind of piggyback on that, like looking at the usage with Conor versus Edmonds and the rushing, as far as rushing goes, they're almost identical. It's basically been a split. Production's been better with Edmonds, and then Conor's a non-event in the passing game, so I expect that's going to be all Edmonds. So,
yeah, Edmonds that's the surprise I thought was the offense, how it broke down with touches. Edmonds, I expected to get fewer carries than Conor and yield some of those in the red zone looks for Conor, and we haven't seen that. We've seen Edmonds take just as many carries on top of his passing workload, and Conor still has 0 catches and I think 1 target all season through 2 weeks, and that's that. I think they're just knowing Cliff Kingsbury, they're going to keep it that way barring injury.
Yeah, the great thing about playing on underdog is it seems like every year or every week we're getting like a couple of these over-under selections that seem that they're too easy. And I got another one for you here that when I saw it this morning, I almost had to make sure all the eye boogers were out of there to make sure I was seeing it clearly. But guys, Lamar Jackson right now over under 290.5 total yards, going to the Motor City, Detroit Lions. Guys, right now, Lamar Jackson, he's averaging over 330 combined yards per game. We saw him have an absolute stunner of a game here last weekend on Sunday night. I'm obviously smashing the over here. I think 290 yards is a low ask of Lamar Jackson, who has been dominant both on the ground and definitely improved as a passer that we've seen so far this year.
Absolutely. Lamar Jackson is special, and he's that whole offense. And what that means is that even if they do get off to a big lead against Detroit, or the opposite happens, let's say Detroit keeps up with them because Baltimore's defense is so disheveled right now with injuries and illnesses, that doesn't matter the game flow. Lamar Jackson is the Baltimore offense. He's going to be passing more if they're trying to keep up with a good offense. And they're going to be running the ball with Lamar Jackson if they're ahead and trying to keep the clock moving. So Lamar Jackson's going to get yards all game long. And this is the kind of matchup where I can see him starting off really hot through the air and approaching 250, 260 passing yards just on its own. Yeah. And as we know, one of his carries could easily go 25, 30 yards or more. And then you got your over in maybe the first 2.5 quarters, because Detroit's defense is terrible. Like we saw what Green Bay just did to them, and that's very encouraging for an over better on this line. 290.5 is way too low.
Yeah, and the only thing that I would add, because you guys absolutely covered everything I was going to say, is if you happen to catch the Lamar over under 75.5 rushing yards anywhere, whether it's underdog or whether it's on Monkey Knife Fight, I'd be smashing the hell out of that too, because I found it this morning, and I think that's an easy number.
100%.
Yeah, I think it's a little tougher of a number than the total yardage, but it's still very attainable. So yeah, it's definitely a risk you're willing to take because you're more than 50% likely for that to hit the over.
Absolutely. Guys, while I gave you 2 guaranteed smashes, I am going to give you a little bit of a riskier play for my final pick'em parlay selection here of week 3. And it's none other than a guy we've talked a lot about at In Between Media the last couple of weeks, Jamar Chase. T. Higgins obviously going to be out for the week. I hate to see that for the second-year wide receiver, but what it means to me is it means more volume for Chase, guys like Tyler Boyd as well. We don't know what this game against the Steelers is going to be. It could go one of 2 ways here, guys. We talked about it a little bit earlier. It could be a slow bog fest that, is a score of 13-17, or we could see these offenses get loose as we haven't seen the Steelers offense do so far this season. But right now the line is 65.5 receiving yards for Jamar Chase, Through 2 games, he's averaging 77.5 receiving yards. Obviously, that came on, the back of some really big plays. But, I think with, Chase, the thing is, you get one of those big plays that connects. It's, 40, 50 of those, 65.5 yards you need. We know cornerback Joe Hayden, he's back for the Steelers this week. We don't know if he'll be at 100%, but with T. Higgins out, I'm still confident that the young man Chase can get it done for our underdog fans out there.
Yeah, I mean, this one is definitely riskier. You're taking a leap of faith that it won't be one of those divisional slugfests that they tend to play. These two teams are usually in a big clash of who wins the trenches. So if it is that kind of game, I still think it's a nice low number that's very enticing. It wants you to bet the over. It wants you to say, you know what, Jamar Chase is an absolute stud. And even if they're going to run the ball 25 times with Joe Mixon and let Joe Burrow kind of dink and dunk to Tyler Boyd and to Mixon, you still have Jamar Chase out there against an aging corner like Joe Hayden, who's not 100%. And that Steelers secondary, Joe Hayden aside, hasn't been good at all. They've been exploited down the field, and Jamar Chase is that kind of player that has given them fits the first 2 weeks.
Yeah, I mean, you never know. With like Joe Burrow's had one great game, one mediocre game, so it is tough to figure out the Bengals offense right now. But we know that T. Higgins, he already had 15 targets through the 2 games, so there's probably going to be about 7 or 8 targets roaming around for him. For some of these receivers to take advantage of. So I'm going with my gut. I'm calling my shot on the rookie. But like you said, Bo, it's still an obtainable number for the Bengals offense, which is a little bit of a mystery at this point still.
Yep. We have no idea what's going to happen in this game.
No, the only thing I was going to add is I was just looking as far as Chase versus Boyd's usage last week, and it's been like a 50% flip-flop week to week. So that's the only thing where I get a little concerned is if, to Bo's point, if we're really focused on dinking and dunking to Boyd, that number goes sideways pretty quick. So,
yep, therein lies the risk, but no risk it, no biscuit, and you're not going to win playing scared.
Absolutely. That's what we do here in Between Media. We risk it for the biscuit. Gentlemen, thank you for all your DFS knowledge. That's it for Underdog Stories today. We're going to go into our next section here of the show, bringing a knife to a gunfight. Enjoy.
Ooh. Man, getting metal this morning. Love it.
I remember when we were talking about the concept for the show, I told Nate, I'm like, the 19th hole is all chill, jazzy. Like, let's get some guitar riffs. It's a little heavy.
Yeah. This is heavier. It's great. It's a pick-me-up in the morning, getting ready for some gridiron action. This is bringing a knife to a gunfight, brought to you by Monkey Knife Fight. We have some more or less. I mean, let's talk about biscuit for the biscuit. I mean, you were very close to hitting this 20 times or 500 times multiplier last week, and I did abysmal. I got 3 out of 10 on this last week. But hopefully we'll turn it around. I got a nice new slate of player prop over unders. You go ahead and
it was crazy last week though too. Like on that 10 leg that I had, probably one of the things I was most confident in was that Waller over, and that's the one that
right
dry.
Yeah,
and it's just like I'm looking at the rest of them, and I went pretty much contrarian to what you did on the other 9.
Yeah, which is why you did 9 out of 10 and I had 3. It went south for me really fast because one of the guys got hurt, and it was just gross.
Such a gut punch. You're 10 in to win $5,000, and you're just like, Waller.
I was dead in the water. That was dead on arrival, actually. But it's a new week. We have new lines to exploit. First one, Patrick Mahomes over under 319.5 passing yards. What do you think about this one?
I love it. I'm going over. I actually got it at a lower number too. I got it at 315.5.
Ooh, nice.
I got that like early this morning. But anyways, so a little better number. I still like it at your number. I think they're just going to be slinging the rock left and right. I like the Mahomes more. I like the Herbert more. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little worried about this one because of how good the Chargers defense is. They obviously it's Patrick Mahomes, and 320 passing yards isn't that big of a deal to somebody like him. But we saw a similar player, Dak Prescott, who's known for throwing for 300 plus just about every game, and he got shut down by the Chargers, and they really tried to emphasize the running game advantage that they had. The Chiefs don't have that running game, which gives me a little bit of confidence that this is going to hit the over. But I think out of all the high total games, this one could be the one that kind of sneaks the under because of how decent both defenses are, at least neutralizing the offensive firepower that we're going to see. So I'm also over. I'm just a little hesitant because it's a high number. 319.5 is a pretty high number for anybody.
Yeah, I think the things I look at, though, I mean, if you look at Kelsey so far, his performance, and I don't see that diminishing at all this week. And then, with Tyreek, you're one pass away from a 100-yard game on one. I mean, it's one pass. So I do think there is some concern with the neutralizing defenses, but at the same time, I mean, Mahomes always finds a way and he always puts up numbers. So I'm not too worried about it.
All right. So similar prop for Justin Herbert, in the same game head to head. If we're thinking shootout with the passing game as the focus, why wouldn't you like Herbert at 10 yards less, 309.5 for Herbert's over under? I'm smashing the over on this one because the Chargers really don't have a running game to speak of aside from the 10 carries or so they give to Austin Eckler, because the rest of the running backs are absolute garbage. Oh.
Wrong button. Yeah, well, I probably should. Look at me. I was going to say, though, much like what I said a minute ago, Herbert, I got it at 305.5, so it's an even better number. And again, if it does go the game script, it gets Mahomes on his over. I don't see any reason why Herbert isn't over on his. It's not going to be as deep and consistent probably as Mahomes, but call it 10 plus catches with Allen, and then you got Eckler out of the backfield. I mean, I'm with you. I don't think there's going to be much of a run game to speak of on either side, and they're going to have to score points.
Yep, and don't forget about Mike Dubb. Mike Williams is on fire. I was skeptical about him taking over that X receiver role in that offense and leaving Keenan in the slot, but he stepped in, he stayed healthy, and he's been spectacular. So what used to be just an upside play week to week is now an upside play with massive volume that he's turning into big production points. So,
and especially when we get into DFS, I mean, now Williams he's got a bit of a floor, which wasn't the story before, and so you can stack differently and differentiate lineups, but we'll get there.
I mean, so before we move on to Derrick Henry, let's stay with Travis Kelce in the same game. I got it at 90.5 over under. This is a pretty quick over for me. He's averaging well over 100 yards a game. He does draw Derwin James, which is probably the toughest matchup he's going to encounter every year twice. And it slows him down a little bit, but with how good the corners are for LA, we might also see them just pepper Kelce with a bunch of short targets, and he gets there from volume alone. So 90.5 for Kelce in a high scoring game is going to be pretty quick to hit the over. I'm not sure that he'll score a touchdown in this game, but that's also pretty safe. 90.5. That's a nice little easy. That's a free square in the 10-legger.
No, and I already went over that one too. Sorry, I had to move. It's getting close to bar time here, so we got people trickling in. Music's kicking up, so hopefully I'm not too muted now. Moved a little bit.
The ambiance is great. So moving on, Derrick Henry, I got him at 104.5. We just saw him go for 200 plus total yards. This is just a rushing yard prop. He's not going to get, I don't think they're going to back it up with another 30 plus carries this week. They're going to try to at least measure down his workload, but 104.5 for a guy that just rushed for 2,000 yards last year in 16 games. This one's pretty easy, especially against Indianapolis, who is a good defense but not great, and he mauled them last year.
Yeah, and I think the problem with Derrick Henry, not problem, but the only thing that gives me a little bit of pause is he's fully live to go for 20 yards too. So, I mean, it's either 200 or 20. And, the problem is maybe I got a little bit of FOMO with Henry, and maybe I've gotten burnt when I'm not on him when he does put up big numbers. So anytime I see a number that's even close to 100, I'll hit that.
Yeah, I agree, and it's always tough because I was on him in week 1. He didn't do anything. I was off him in week 2, and he blew up. And he went against the game flow last week to put up 50 points. So I mean, we can't predict this stuff, but what we've seen from Derrick Henry so far this season is a big increase in his passing usage. Which doesn't help us in this prop, but at least it opens up the offense where they're just tougher to defend. All right. You got next guy.
I'm trying to, chime in.
The noise is there, but it's not that bad. So
it's not bad. Okay, cool.
It's actually quite nice because it gives us a little livelihood here in the morning.
We're still adjusting to the remote location feed.
Kyler Murray's our next one, another passing yard prop. This one worries me. I'm almost inclined to lock in the under here in passing yards because DeAndre Hopkins is probably going to play, but he's got bruised ribs, and we know if you've ever had bruised ribs, just sitting on the couch is painful, breathing is painful, moving and twisting is painful, and he's going to be doing that for 60 minutes. Whether or not it's against the Jaguars is immaterial to his performance on the field is going to be hindered. And Kyler Murray is going to have to use his other options, which they're all pretty good themselves. But not having Nuke at full strength is really going to hurt Kyler Murray, especially when this is an easily a negative game flow for passing yards in this case. So I'm taking the under on 291.5 passing yards for Kyler Murray. I think he's going to be somewhere in that 270, 275 range.
Yeah, I'm really similar. I think he either goes way over or to your point, he's at 270-ish. And I think it really does matter a lot on Hopkins. I mean, yeah, the bruised ribs, it's concerning. I think we'll know by end of the first quarter probably what we're going to see, what the rest of the game script's going to look like. But, if Hopkins toughs it out and plays even at 80%, I mean, I think he can get over I've got it at 291.5. So, yeah. I can get there on either side of it. I think it's a tough call in with you. It's probably one of the more risky ones in this 10 leg.
Yeah, and that's it's one of the only unders I took because we're looking at a game where we don't expect the Jaguars to hang on very long and compete with Arizona. Another thing that kind of moves me towards the under is field position. I think Arizona is going to force a few turnovers and be on short fields. And that goes a long way towards passing yard totals because if you have a team that's so bad that they're giving Kyler Murray easier avenues to score touchdowns, which he's extremely good at, they aren't going to need to put up a ton of yards to light up the scoreboard. And that's what concerns me the most. And that's really what pushed me towards the under the hardest.
Well, and again, in DFS, I actually really like the defense for Arizona. So I'm a lot with you. Again, it's just a 50-50 in my head because I can see it going a different way too. I mean, there's, of course, but I lean towards the under. I'm definitely more into that game script thought than the opposite.
So what do you think about Nick Chubb? This is a tough matchup for Nick Chubb, but as we know, Nick Chubb is what they call good at football. And he's always a threat to break off a big run. They love to run the football. They're especially going to love running the football when Jarvis Landry's not on the field. Odell Beckham is going to be back, but probably on a pitch count of some sort. This is going to be slow grinding game, I think, with running games being really important to both teams. Nick Chubb over under 79.5 is the line I locked in. I locked in the over because I see him getting 20 carries. And if you don't think Nick Chubb's going to average 4 yards a carry when for his career he averages over 5, I think you got a problem there, because Nick Chubb is going to get about 20 carries, and he's very easily going to get over 4 yards per carry.
Yeah, I'm with you. And that's actually closer to where it opened. The original one that I got midweek was about 81.5. And I still took the over on that. It slid down now to the 79.5. And I kind of think that might be a little bit of people kind of following some of the narrative with the diminished receiving core. And then, maybe Kareem Hunt being a little more involved in some of those, like, check down, dump off style passes. So I'm with you in that we know Chubb is a beast. We know what his averages are. We know how many carries he's got to get there. I think odds are definitely in our favor that he does, but I can see Kareem Hunt being a real X factor this week that may throw it way out of whack.
Yeah, I'm definitely on that. I just think that we're going to get half of that prop on one big run probably early on, and I won't have to even think about it, because if the Browns get off to a good lead, they're going to ride Chubb. If they fall behind, which isn't as likely in this matchup, they're gonna use both. They have two talented backs. They love to use both, but they especially love to use Chubb no matter the situation. They don't fade Chubb at any point. The only time you see Hunt get faded is when they're ahead, and then they don't really have to use them as much. So Nick Chubb over 79.5. What do you think about Tyreek Hill? This one's kind of a coin flip for me, because he's another Derrick Henry paradox.
I think if we like the Mahomes over, we have to.
It's true. I'm going to take you under on Tyreek Hill, because this cornerback group, we just saw them absolutely lock down Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb, a very talented passing attack, much like Kansas City. And this is a tough passing group. So if Mahomes is going to hit, it's going to be through sheer volume alone. And those volume games tend to favor Kelsey, tend to favor CEH and Pringle and Robinson and Hardman, because they're going to be locked into preventing Tyreek Hill from beating them over the top, which he did once last year. And that's obviously the worry of taking an under on Tyreek Hill, is you're just praying that it's one of his games where he's just not the focal point.
Well, dude, and it's like I said about Henry. I mean, maybe it's FOMO, maybe it's I know it's one pass that can get him to that many yards. So
yeah, it's this one's making me nervous, but I gotta take the under here just for how I feel about the game flow. I'm taking the under in the game. I'm taking the over in yardage just because they're not going to run the ball. It's a big number too. 89.5 receiving yards with so many other weapons to feed. I just have this gut feeling that that's the way it's going to go. Three more.
I'll tell you, that's a.
Oh, we lost his Wi-Fi signal. I'm going to move on to Matt Ryan. This one is a passing matchup that's both quarterbacks are going to be lighting up the fantasy scoreboard. Matt Ryan, after absolutely terrible performance in week 1 against Philly, kind of bounced back other than his 3 interceptions, 2 of them going back the other direction for touchdowns. He did have a couple touchdown passes, threw for 300 plus yards. And his prop is at 283.5 against a New York Giants defense that's just way underperforming. They're a very well coached unit under Coach Graham. They don't have a lot of talent on that defense. And so far, that's been the narrative, is that, yeah, they're prepared, but no, they're not very good. And the Falcons, if we know anything about their roster, is they have 2 good players out of 53 on their entire roster, and they're both receivers. They have Kyle Pitts and Calvin Ridley. Matt Ryan is hopefully going to continue to feed his best guys to hit this over 283.5, because I don't think they're going to be able to run the ball very well, even against a terrible Giants rushing attack, because I think this game will shoot out.
Yeah, I'm pretty much with you on all of that too. I think Ridley actually will finally have a decent game for us. Not that it's been horrible; it's just not been what we paid up for.
Right.
And then I actually kind of sneaky like Patterson this week too. Like some of that usage is picked up, and he's a dual threat. So I think
Connor chasing points from last week.
No. Go and look at. I'm just saying. But yeah, I'm chasing a little bit, but I definitely see it. And having him in the passing game, it's a pseudo reliable thus far. So
yeah, I think Cordero Patterson's only a thing because Mike Davis isn't a thing, and I think that either one of them could have a decent game against such a terrible defense. But I'm leaning on this passing game because that's their clear advantage in this game. It's just that there's going to be a lot of points in this game because defense will be non-existent. Going to Jared Goff. The Lions and the Ravens, both of our final picks are quarterbacks in this game going head to head. The Goff line is 269.5 passing yards. I'm smashing the over on this one because the Lions are going to pass all over Baltimore. They're going to have to throw the ball a ton of times. And no, I don't think Goff's going to be very explosive with those millions of pass attempts against Baltimore. But if you throw the ball 50 times and you fall short of 270 yards passing, you didn't have a good game. And so far, their passing offense has been pretty good. Goff has been surprisingly efficient. His receivers, especially T.J. Hawkinson, have been spectacular, at least as far as fantasy production. So I think this is a pretty easy over. This is another free square for me for what I expect the game to look like.
Yeah, I'm with you. I really don't have much more to add to that. I mean, I think it's one of those things, if you put a different name on Goff's jersey and put it in a vacuum, I think you have a lot different perception on how good he's actually playing right now. He looks sharp. So, yeah, I don't have any complaints or any pushback on that. I think it's free square.
Good. And then wrapping it up, this is the rushing yard prop that Seth alluded to earlier. I got Lamar Jackson over 75.5 rushing yards. This is a risky one because sometimes you don't need your quarterback to run the ball, even though Lamar's definitely talented enough to crack that number in a hurry. If the game flow indicates that that's what they need from him. But at the same time, I'm taking the over, but I'm a little bit worried because game flow dependent for sure. Because if you average 60 yards a game, that's 1,000 yards rushing, and that's usually what his average is. The last 3 years, we've seen him rush for just right at 1,000 yards, which is about 63 yards per game. And he just had a massive rushing performance again. So I'm taking the over because the odds say play the over on that rushing total, especially against Detroit, who can't stop anybody. But what do you think, Koff?
Yeah, I'm with you. This is probably one of the ones on here that worries me a little bit more than some of the others, just because it may end up being a tall ask. Because your average is pretty much what I had at around 260-ish. He's coming off a big game. I know that's skewing the line that we're getting, but it's also the Lions. So I think 75.5 is a pretty doable number. But yeah, we'll see. That's one of maybe two on this 10-legger that I'm a little sketchy on.
All right, so we're going to wrap this beautiful show up with some DraftKings. Load that intro, baby.
Best not miss.
Yep, this is King of the Crop, brought to you by DraftKings, my favorite DFS site, pretty much everyone's favorite DFS site. Yeah, you can cheat on DraftKings and play on Yahoo and FanDuel and all the others, but DraftKings is the king of DFS. And you can't have the DFS Tailgate show without some DFS, am I right?
Seems fitting.
So, what are we looking at this week? We're trying to identify high total games that are going to shoot out and give us the best stacking opportunities to hit the nuts on a GPP. Am I right?
You are right. So the first one that I'm kind of looking at is Minnesota, Seattle. I like both sides of the ball in that game. I think you can stack a lot of different ways. It's going to be popular, especially on the Seattle side. I think people are going to see a ton of upside with Lockett, especially with like a less than optimal secondary out of the Vikings.
Yeah, understatement.
I kind of like attacking it from the other side, though. I kind of like taking Cousins and stacking him with a lower end Osborne in this situation, which allows me to get Lockett in as well to come back. He's going to be productive, but I don't think I want to put all my eggs in the Seattle side. I think I'm going to play Cousins, who's been averaging 25.5. He's going to be lower owned because people just don't like playing Cousins. And that opens up a ton of ability to do some stuff at the running back position.
Yeah, and I mean, looking at the matchups, Seattle's secondary hasn't been bad. So their run defense is exploitable. The problem is Dalvin Cook likely not going to be playing. It'll be Alexander Mattison, who in all of his career starts in relief of Dalvin Cook has done absolutely nothing. And so we're going to have to lean on Kirk Cousins if you're the Vikings. And did Adam Thielen die? Because everybody's expecting Jefferson to be the guy, but every week it seems like Thielen's the one scoring the touchdowns. And that's the kind of direction I'm going with a game that is definitely going to have some points scored. But these defenses, if they have one thing going for them, Seattle's pass defense is better. It's top 15. And then Minnesota's pass rush has been good. So they can get after Russ, who has a pretty bad offensive line in front of him. The offense is explosive. We know that, but Russ has been chased out of the pocket pretty much as often as he was last year. So I do expect some big plays to make this game really shoot out, but I'm going to do the Cousins and Thielen stack and run it back with Chris Carson because talk about disrespectful. Chris Carson is underpriced again. He's going to get 20 touches, and Minnesota can't stop. Whether it's run or pass, they can't stop anybody.
No.
And if Seattle gets ahead, Pete Carroll is going to run the rock.
Yeah, I love the Carson play too, and he's the part of this offensive stack that not many people are talking about. It's Lockett, it's Metcalf, it's back and forth. What's the main target? And Carson, I think Carson even right now has got a safe floor of about 15 to 16 fantasy points, which. Right. I'll take that guaranteed over the Russian roulette that can sometimes be Lockett versus Metcalf. So I like him for a floor, especially as bringing the ball back. I just think it's a fun game to stack. I'm really, really down, I'm really, really with you on Thielen. I've got a ton of Thielen everywhere. Just like to throw out, the alternatives. That's what we do. Throw out the 3,500 Osborne, gives you a ton of room to get people like Derrick Henry in your lineup. So
exactly. Yeah, and I like Osborne in cash games. I'm not sure about his upside in tournaments. Even he had the one long touchdown last week, and the rest of it was just little slot patterns that move the chains. He's a move the chains kind of guy that they were pleasantly surprised to see step in for Irv Smith as a third receiving option on that team.
I just love him at averaging around 15 points so far, though. I mean, at 3,500, you're basically getting 5x return on that dollar to point ratio. I mean, that's not bad.
Of course, it's definitely quite strong. What's your next game?
I'm actually looking at Tampa Bay and the Rams. I love Brady.
I'm shocked.
Yeah, right. I think everybody on the planet is, but I think the thing there too, and kind of my theme of the week with a lot of these stacks is I just don't want to play Russian roulette with the receiving core. So I'm going with what's consistent. I'm looking at Brady and Gronk stacks. And then, coming back, we can get Kupp in there, no problem. I expect that he's going to light it up again. And it's a relatively affordable stack to do because getting Gronk at 5,500, which I just don't understand when you look at the rest of the tight end pricing and what he's been able to produce so far. So that's probably my next one I'm looking at.
Yeah, I'm off Gronk and I'm off Evans this week. Evans is obviously a touchdown threat every time he suits it up, but he's going to draw that Jalen Ramsey matchup. So I do see the Rams being slightly stronger in this game, but it will be back and forth and it will be high scoring because both passing attacks are so potent. It's not really going to matter how good the defenses are at the end of the day. I'm really locked in on spending up for a Rams stack because Matthew Stafford at 6,400 is absolutely criminal. That somebody who's very likely going to chuck the ball 50 times in this game is going to be at pretty much an automatic 4 times multiplier, especially if he can hook up for some touchdowns. Darrell Henderson's probably not playing. They have Sony Michel and they have Jake Funk running the ball against a Bucks front seven that's probably the best in the game by a good clip. They've separated themselves as a run defense from the rest of the pack. And so if the Rams are smart, which I'm pretty sure they are, they're going to take the Dallas approach and just throw the ball on every play. That's going to give Kupp a very safe volume floor. It's going to give Woods the same. It's going to give Van Jefferson some relevance at the bottom of the barrel there. So I love this passing game for the Rams because the weakness of this defense for Tampa Bay is their secondary. Aside from Carlton Davis, who's a very good zone defender, they're really not doing well covering slot receivers. And if we know anything about Sean McVay, not the Oklahoma City Bomber, Sean McVay is he runs that modified bunch wing formation about 80% of the time, where all of his receivers are in the slot. They don't run any receivers outside the numbers in the formation, and then they run a lot of those crisscross routes and create matchup nightmares. And the secondary, if the communication's bad, they break down and their assignments get lapsed. And that's why we've seen Cooper Kupp just wide open down the field, because the communication early in the season isn't there for those DBs. And Sean Murphy-Bunting wasn't good in the slot, but his replacement is even worse, because you have a guy who is pretty much just on dime packages, and now he's having to go up against a guy like Cooper Kupp. And that's a huge mismatch in favor of the Rams. I'm also running it back with my guy, Chris Godwin, or as I like to call him, God Chriswin. He's in that slot matchup, which the Rams are solid across the board. But one thing we've seen is that aside from Ramsey's guy, the guy that gets peppered with targets effectively is the guy on the slot if he's fast enough. And that's kind of why I'm off Gronk, because Gronk has been extremely touchdown dependent, and his volume hasn't been there. He's just showed up and scored 2 touchdowns in both games so far. So at his price point, it's nice, but I'm not expecting him to score 2 touchdowns every game and have 34 for the season. It's gonna be a lot of volume to Godwin, and yeah, Gronk might score again, but I think Godwin, with how many targets he's gonna get, has a higher likelihood of having that big shoot game that makes you money.
Equally likely to bust on you too.
Yeah, and the one last piece,
we've got 2 more, but we want to give some people some time to set some things. You want to talk Chiefs Chargers, or you want to talk Giants Atlanta?
Well, Chiefs Chargers is much more exciting. Yeah, Chiefs Chargers. We did cover quite a bit with the player props. I see this as kind of a lower scoring game with a slower pace. There's going to be some touchdowns scored, but I'm going to go under 54.5 on this total. It's going to be a good game, but I expect the Chargers 53-man roster depth to be better than Kansas City, and they'll come out ahead. Eckler is a huge target of mine. Keenan Allen's solid. Mike Dubb and Eckler and Herbert, that's the stack I'm looking at, and running it back with probably Kelsey.
Nope, that's spot on what I was going to go after too. I think I may do a little bit of Mahomes Tyreek stack, just because I think it's expensive and it may be a little bit trickier to actually work a decent lineup. So maybe a little contrarian. But I think it's going to be a high target game.
You never seem to lose. Yeah, you never seem to lose with that stack. Every time I use that stack, it seems to cash something.
Right. Yeah. Like I said, I think it'll be a little contrarian too. So, but you're going to have to get weird. You're going to have to play play some wide receivers from down low, or mix in a little bit of Patterson at 4,600. I know how much you love that play.
Woof. All right, let's end up with the Giants and Falcons, which is not exciting on paper because neither of these teams is any good. But there's not going to be any defense. So for fantasy purposes, it's exciting to see points on the board, especially if you're stacking this game, which I'm going to be very prone to with most of my lineups. I'm excited to say that I have quite a few just Daniel Jones and Saquon Barkley stacks, just 2 for rushing upside for both of them in a smash matchup against Atlanta, and then running it back with Kyle Pitts or Ridley or both. I mean, if you go 2-on-2 in a game stack, you're getting all the studs. With Ingram back, I'm kind of hesitant to play any of these Giants receivers because they're going to be spread out. And Jason Garrett is one of the worst play callers in the league, and he's not going to be innovative in any way possible, even against a terrible defense. He's just going to be super vanilla, super predictable, and hopefully the talent of Barkley and Jones can put up a ton of points anyway.
Yeah, I'm with you, and then I don't hate stacking it the other way either. Going Matt Ryan with Calvin Ridley and coming back with Saquon, who's underpriced, or even taking a little bit more of a leap and going after like Sterling Shepard or somebody. Like Sterling's averaging 22.9. I get it's only over 2 games, but I mean, if they're going to feed him the ball, you can do a lot worse, especially at the price. So this game's really stackable. It gives you a ton of room. Just with the soft pricing on every component of it, gives you room to get some of the guys from the other games that we've talked about that are in bigger smash spots that are going to be more consistent. Gives you the ability to get them into. So
perfect. All right, that wraps up the DFS tailgate on In Between Media. Thanks for joining us. We got about 6.5 minutes till lock, so get your stuff put together. Hopefully you already did, and you just kind of pivoted quickly on our amazing knowledge. But check us out next time at noon Eastern. We'll be back again with the good libations and lots of DFS.
cheers, buddy.